Let's just jump right in with a headline that frankly redrew the map of this conflict. Ukraine strikes Lukoil offshore platforms in the Caspian Sea, January 11, 2026. The shock of this, hitting high-value Russian assets in what everyone thought was the world's safest landlocked sea, it's a huge deal. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me with Arya in the latest deep dive by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover, a campaign so ambitious it feels like it's straight out of a movie.
It really does. We are unpacking the implications of striking these Russian-owned Lukoil oil platforms in the Caspian Sea. And this isn't just about one successful attack. It's a deep strike campaign reaching over 900 kilometers from the front lines. It's taking the war right to Russia's financial and logistical heart.
Exactly. So here's the mission for this deep dive. We really want to understand what makes this attack so groundbreaking, both strategically and technologically. We've got three huge questions we need to unpack. First, how did Ukrainian Special Operations Forces, the SOF, manage to hit three separate platforms, Filanovsky, Korchagin, and Grafer, from 900 kilometers away in a landlocked sea?
And second, why the Caspian? Why has this sea, which was always seen as a Russian sanctuary, suddenly become such a critical front? And there's a big hint. It's all about Russia's logistics and those key Iranian weapon transfers.
And finally, we're going to look at how this incredible deep strike capability really shows the amazing evolution of Ukraine's own drone industry. They've gone from just denying Russia the use of the Black Sea to now actively targeting Russia's core economic engine. It's a revolutionary way to fight a war. Okay, so let's unpack the strike itself. Give us the context here. This wasn't just some random hit, right? This was a highly coordinated attack on massive static infrastructure.
That's right. Ukrainian Special Operations Forces confirmed direct hits on Lukoil's Vladimir Filanovsky, Yuri Korchagin, and Valery Grafer platforms, all in the northern Caspian. But what's really crucial to understand is that this was a follow-up. The SBU, Ukraine's security service, had already hit these facilities with drones back in late 2025.
Oh, interesting. So they were already offline.
They were already forced offline. So this January 11th strike, it wasn't about the initial destruction.
It was about making sure they couldn't get back online, crippling the recovery effort.
Precisely. The stated goal was to prevent any repairs and just skyrocket the long-term recovery costs for Lukoil. And when you look at the target, it makes perfect sense. This is financial warfare. The Filanovsky field alone is one of Russia's biggest in the region. It holds something like 129 million tons of oil and 30 billion cubic meters of gas. The earlier strikes had already shut down production from over 20 wells.
And that kind of volume is it's absolutely central to funding Russia's war. So Kyiv's position is that this infrastructure is a perfectly legitimate target.
Absolutely. From Kyiv's perspective, this oil infrastructure directly pays for the missiles and tanks. So if you can degrade the infrastructure that earns the money, you slow down the entire war machine.
And we are starting to see real effects from this, right? It's not just theoretical. These deep strike drone attacks, plus new U.S. sanctions on companies like Rosneft and Lukoil, it's creating real pressure.
The data shows it's working. If we look at the numbers for December 2025, Russian crude oil production dipped to 9.326 million barrels per day.
And how much of a drop is that?
That's over 100,000 barrels per day lower than the month before. And analysts are pointing to two main reasons. The Lukoil strikes forcing shutdowns and just general nervousness from buyers who are worried about sanctions and, whether their supply is even reliable anymore.
So the strikes are basically a form of economic pressure, forcing Russia to spend money on defense and repair instead of on the front line. But this brings us back to the big question, why the Caspian? Hitting a platform is one thing, but hitting it 900 kilometers away suggests there's a much bigger strategic reason than just the oil.
Oh, there is. And it's all about logistics, a protected transit route. This is where the geography of the Caspian Sea becomes absolutely vital for Russia's military.
How does a landlocked sea connect their internal supply lines to the war?
Through the Volga-Don Canal system. It's Russia's crucial internal waterway. It basically connects their industrial heartland to the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. It lets them move heavy military equipment, troops, even warships between different areas, especially when the canal isn't frozen in winter. It is their protected highway.
A protected highway, and one that's also fueling the Moscow-Tehran axis, which is becoming more and more important.
That's the real linchpin here. The Caspian Road is absolutely instrumental for getting Iranian weapons to Russia. We're talking mainly about the Shahed drones. They're cheap, they're effective, and Russia uses them in huge numbers. We've even seen open source data on the economics of it. It looks like Iran is selling them in bulk like 6,000 units for around $193,000 each.
And the normal price is what?
The standard price is closer to $370,000, so it points to a very deep, high-volume supply chain.
That kind of pricing suggests it's a huge institutional relationship. And I assume the movement of these weapons is kept pretty quiet.
Extremely quiet. It's very difficult to track. The cargo ships carrying them are often seen going dark. They just turn off their tracking signals near Iranian ports like Amirabad, and then again near Russia's main port, Astrakhan. It's a deliberate move to avoid inspections.
And what's really fascinating and kind of frustrating is that other countries are actively helping Russia bolster this route.
They are. We know that Iran and China helped with a massive dredging project on the Volga River just last year.
To what end?
The whole point was to make the river deeper, to allow for bigger ships, boosting its capacity. It's all about making sure Moscow can keep these logistical flows going, no matter the external pressure. So hitting those Lukoil platforms sends a very clear message. Nothing in this safe hub is actually safe anymore.
Okay, so that really establishes the why, the strategic and financial value of a target 900 kilometers away. So now let's get to the how. What kind of tech do you need to pull this off, especially when Ukraine has these known gaps in its arsenal?
Well, this is where you see innovation born from necessity. Ukraine has a well-known lack of domestically made long-range cruise missiles, like a Shrim-2 or a land attack Neptune.
So they needed a solution that was cheap, something they could build themselves, and something they could scale up for a 900-kilometer campaign.
That's the core of it. To fill that gap, Ukraine's defense industry has just rapidly developed, I think it's up to 19 different models of long-range UAVs for these kamikaze strikes. We're talking about winged drones developed and built during the war. Drones with names like the Bober, which means beaver, and the Luady or Furious. They give Ukraine that critical long-range strike capability.
But wait, wouldn't these long-range drones be incredibly vulnerable flying over that much territory? I mean, 900 kilometers is a long, predictable flight path for air defenses to track.
It's a constant challenge, absolutely. Their success comes down to extremely sophisticated mission planning. They often fly at very low altitudes, using the terrain to mask their approach, exploiting known gaps in Russian air defense coverage. The fact they hit 3 platforms successfully tells you just how sophisticated the planning was and how resilient these drone designs are.
And this deep strike is really just the latest step in a story of innovation that started in the Black Sea, right? Can you walk us through that shift from using drones for sea denial against ships to targeting static infrastructure in the Caspian?
Of course. The initial success with the naval drones, the SBU's Sea Baby and the military intelligence's Magura V5, that was a massive strategic victory. They essentially achieved a super cost-effective denial of the Black Sea to the Russian fleet, forcing them to retreat to eastern harbors and even move some of their best ships to the Caspian for safety.
Which is just an incredible moment in military history. A country with no traditional navy forces a major naval power to retreat.
And they did it with tech that cost a tiny fraction of a normal weapon system. These naval drones are only about $250,000 to $350,000 each. They use commercial parts, even things like scooter engines. That low cost means you can keep building them no matter what.
But the move to the Caspian suggests there was a limit to what the naval drones could do. Why go after a static oil rig instead of more ships?
The limitation is pretty simple. The naval drones gave them sea denial, but not total sea control. They couldn't get past the heavily defended Kerch Bridge area, which guards the Sea of Azov, where a lot of the fleet is now hiding. So if you can't hit the warships hiding behind those defenses, what do? You shift your focus. You go after the static, high-value economic assets that pay for those fleets, even if they're 900 kilometers inland. The target shifts from naval power to financial power.
That shift in thinking is so important. But the innovation isn't just in these long-range strikes. What's happening on the land front, the FPV revolution, has been just as fast, moving away from expensive imports to this mass-produced, almost disposable firepower.
Right. We initially saw a lot of reliance on things like the Turkish Bayraktar TB2s, but their effectiveness dropped as Russian air defenses got better. So the focus shifted to commercial surveillance drones, like the Chinese DJI Mavic 3T, for cheap, amazing reconnaissance.
But the real tactical game changer has been the FPV, the first-person view kamikaze drones. That's what you see in all the frontline videos now.
Absolutely. These cheap, light quadcopters costing maybe €300 to €400 have completely changed the battlefield. They're incredibly efficient anti-artillery and anti-tank weapons, and this really all came about because of necessity.
The necessity being the severe shortage of 155mm artillery shells that Ukraine faced in late 2023.
Exactly. When you run out of shells, you start firing FPVs. President Zelensky even announced a plan to produce 1 million FPV drones in a year. It's a direct substitute for artillery fire. And the cost benefit is just insane. A single battalion might use up to 3,000 FPV drones a month, and you can get a guaranteed tank kill with just 3 to 6 high-quality drones. That's maybe $900 to $1,800 a year to destroy a multi-million-dollar tank. You can't match that ratio with anything else.
That kind of cost efficiency has to be forcing commanders to rethink everything. What are some of the new improvised roles we're seeing these little drones take on?
They are moving way beyond just ground attack. FPV drones have actually evolved into aerial interceptors. We have confirmed cases of them taking down high-flying Russian reconnaissance drones like the Orlan and Supercam.
Drones that used to require an expensive surface-to-air missile.
Exactly. And even more shocking, they were successfully going after Russian attack helicopters, Mi-28s, K-52s. They're essentially creating a super cheap mobile air defense system.
And the ingenuity extends to the bombs they carry, too.
Yes. The improvised arsenals are amazing. Units are using 3D printers or little workshops to make custom IEDs from grenade launcher rounds or C4. They're even fitting standard RPG grenades onto drones with no modification. It's grassroots innovation driving this whole thing forward.
But as fast as the drone tech advances, the counter-tech electronic warfare advances just as fast, if not faster. What's the biggest threat to all of this?
It is, without a doubt, enemy electronic warfare, EW. It's designed to break the radio link between the pilot and the drone, making it useless. And that's why the success rates for these drones can vary so much. You might get 10–15% for the really cheap models, but it can climb to over 30% for the higher quality, more resilient ones.
And then you have the dilemma of cost versus range. You can use repeater drones to push the range out to 50 or 60 kilometers, but those repeaters can cost €8,000 each. At what point does the cost of beating the EW start to cancel out the benefit of the cheap drone?
That is the constant economic balancing act. But the consensus is that the tech will keep advancing because the advantage is just too big to give up. I saw one developer on the front line put it very bluntly. He said, "The reality is that every idiot with access to YouTube can kill you. If you do not have a jammer, you will simply die." That reality drives everything.
So, looking forward into the rest of this conflict, what are the big developments in drone warfare we should be watching for?
I think we'll see 3 main things. First, the cost will keep dropping while reliability goes up. The market is maturing. Second, we'll see more specialization. Drones will become standardized carriers for very specific warheads, anti-air fragmentation, thermite incendiaries like the Dragon drone, or specialized anti-armor charges.
And the elephant in the room. What about artificial intelligence? How does AI fit into this?
AI integration is happening, but it's limited right now, mostly by battery life. The main goal for AI is to be an antidote to jamming, to give the drone autonomous guidance. So even if the radio signal is lost, the drone can use pre-programmed intelligence or visual navigation to find its target. We're not at the point of AI-driven swarms just yet, but a drone that can't be stopped by jamming, that is becoming a reality very, very fast.
So if we tie this all back together, the Caspian Sea strikes are really the ultimate proof of concept for this entire technological effort. Ukraine took the lessons from the Black Sea and scaled them up to create a deep strike capability that can hit Russia's financial and logistical spine 900 kilometers away. It's a real-time transformation of military strategy, all driven by pure necessity and ingenuity.
And the shift we're seeing here, this ability to give cheap, reliable, lethal firepower to any unit, anywhere on the map, it's historically profound. You could compare it to the invention of the machine gun or rear-loaded artillery. And it raises a really important question for everyone watching this unfold. What does this mass deployment of cheap, high-firepower tech mean for the future of war? Especially for nations that keep pouring billions into traditional, expensive forces, while maybe ignoring the drone revolution that's happening right in front of them.
You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex Anaria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.